Okay, Mary Whitehouse. So you had a problem with the Doctor nearly being drowned at the end of an episode when he's engaging in a brawl with a nemesis, which is going to be a common occurrence when you're facing off against a bad guy. But yet you didn't have a problem with the episode where the Doctor flat out says that there is no God. We're back to Pertwee for this episode spotlight for two particular reasons. Firstly, because we're going to keep going with my autobiographical approach to my development as a Doctor Who fan, but there is another reason to which we will get to, one that I actually would say is vastly more important. And it had come to my attention that this new place called Best Buy had actually a lot of Doctor Who episodes available on VHS in their sci-fi section. I did not believe such a strange occurrence, but I went for my very first time, sought it out. There it was, 3 rows worth of Doctor Who's on VHS. And I was spoiled for choice. They had Doctors going from the first all the way to Sylvester McCoy, including some guy named Colin Baker, which I was like, wait. Did I miss one and I didn't even know about it? More on that later. So with all these options at my fingertips, the thought entered in my head, well, where am I going to start? Well, you know what, let's not overwhelm myself. Let's start on something I'm familiar with. I was deeply steeped into the Pertwee years. I had gotten used to units, Joe Grant, and most importantly, I got to know and thoroughly enjoy the Master, inimitably played by Roger Delgado. And so I found the one that had all those familiar elements, and it made for a wonderful first video choice. And that one was The Daemons, written by Guy Leopold. This is a particularly rare one in the history of Doctor Who. Firstly, when it came to the serials, this is actually one of the few 5-parters. The only other one in the classic series was The Mind Robber from the second Doctor era. Well, this one is also a favorite of a lot of the cast and crew from that particular time period. And it's very clear to me to see why it's a favorite for a lot of them, because really when you think about it, this is one of the few episodes where all the mainstay cast members really got to shine in this one. Of course, it's got some great moments with the Third Doctor. It's got one of the best disguises of Roger Delgado's Master. You even get a lot of great play with the community of Devil's End. You even get some great moments with Sergeant Benton, Mike Yates, and you've got probably one of the best times where the Brigadier is just praying to the Almighty that he finds a nemesis that is actually vulnerable to bullets to no avail. It's probably one of the funniest moments of the Brigadier's entire history, paired with the line that perfectly sums him up.
Shot for the wings there. 5 rounds rapid.
But the reason this episode really works for me is that this is one of the few episodes in the entire history of Doctor Who that actually decides to debate the line between science and superstition. The story goes like this. An archaeological dig is happening in something called the Devil's Hump, where this egocentric archaeologist is trying to dig into it to try and find treasure left over from the Bronze Age, only to be confronted by the local white witch, Mrs. Hawthorne, played to the hilt by Damaris Heyman, and her warnings end up falling upon deaf ears all around the community, in particular from the enigmatic Mr. Magister, their local vicar. It's the Master! Now we discover that this ancient alien entity, one that was actually responsible heavily with mankind's development, is about to be resurrected by the Master. The Master intends to resurrect this being with the intention to have the powers of this alien life form being bequeathed unto him, so the Master can continue on molding mankind to his ideal. The way he goes about this is not too dissimilar to a lot of satanic rites. And in fact, if you watch the DVD and turn on the info text, they actually have a lot of fascinating facts regarding where they actually get a lot of the lore to inject into the story, particularly a lot of the rites that the Master performs in order to evoke the demons. So with the Doctor trying to stop the Master in his tracks, it puts him at odds with all the locals in Devil's End who have pretty much been taken with the Master and what they perceive as him performing great feats of magic. It also puts him at a bit of a philosophical divide between him and Miss Hawthorne. And to her credit, there are times where she actually proves that a lot of these things actually could exist. There's an entire bit where Miss Hawthorne is actually able to stop a constable who's under the influence of the Master who's trying to kill her, and she does it without even flinching. And it does lend some credence to the idea that there could be actual magic in the world of Doctor Who. But of course you've got the Doctor, especially the third Doctor, who's notorious for his scientific rationale, always at odds with Miss Hawthorne, trying to tell her that no, this is the product of advanced alien science. It all lends a lot to the idea that Arthur C. Clarke lent down, the ideology that any magic is simply technology we do not know about yet. So with this story being 5 episodes long, it actually gives ample time to really explore these ideas, and it all culminates in a great mano-a-mano confrontation with the Doctor and the demon Azal, played by the late great Stephen Thorne. Stephen Thorne was a mainstay of British television in many classic TV series, but he played 2 memorable characters in classic Doctor Who. Of course, the demon Azal in this episode, but he also played Omega in The Three Doctors. We just recently lost Stephen Thorne, and at Gallifrey 1, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He was very gracious. When I met him, he actually seemed very pleased that a young American Doctor Who fan, particularly one that became a fan in the midst of the CGI overload in the mid to late 90s, jumped upon Doctor Who at that age and really embraced it. And the fact that I chose the Daemons to be the first vital stepping stone into accumulating my collection, he really took that as something of a great compliment. So yes, that's my other modus operandi for reviewing this episode, is a loving tribute to Stephen Thorne. We miss you, sir. God rest you. I just said God rest you to a man who made a mark on Doctor Who by playing a demon. Oh, jeez. Moving on. It's actually a very well-paced episode that has a lot of great moments, particularly a chase sequence involving Bessie and one of the Master's acolytes in a helicopter. There's also some great exchanges with the Doctor and the Brigadier when a heat barrier encases the entire town, locking the Brigadier out and locking the Doctor in, and the Doctor is trying to brainstorm with the Brigadier some kind of device which can sap off the energy and allow them to get through. It's really funny. A lot of the dialogue in this episode is extremely quotable. And again, we got some great exchanges with the Doctor and Mrs. Hawthorne, but there's a great info dump scene where the Doctor actually is exploring ancient folklore and the idea of how a lot of the demonic entities have permeated throughout the years, and the idea that we may have deified these advanced beings that may have visited us at a more primitive age, and that we personify them as gods and demons, something a lot more supernatural. And this is one of the rare times in classic Doctor Who where the length actually complements the story. It was very rare in this episode where I was looking at that going, that could have been shaved off. You probably didn't need that much. Everything in this episode actually feels like it belongs. There's a lot of great moments of drama. There's a lot of fantastic moments of humor. Actually, there's a great moment involving the Doctor trying to reason with the residents of Devil's End when they're about to burn him at the stake. And it is actually a very funny scene thanks to Miss Hawthorne. And then, meanwhile, you've got moments of incredible atmosphere. I'll say all the scenes with the Master when he's invoking Azal are actually really well filmed. The set is exceptionally well designed and is rich with a lot of great lighting and atmosphere. There's actually a great scene at the beginning of episode 4 where the Master tries to evoke Azal himself, and it's actually one of the rare times where there's a cliffhanger where the villain is actually threatened. So for anyone who is trying to jump into the classic series, when you start delving into the third Doctor era, definitely watch Inferno. But the other episode, I truly feel, encapsulates everything that's great about the third Doctor era. It's got to be the Daemons. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this episode is hindered because of its blasphemous philosophy? Or do you think that this is the episode that encapsulates everything that's great about the third Doctor era? Simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served.